The United Kingdom officially leaves the European Union. We expose the mainstream media's lies about Brexit. And today's special guest is the one and only Douglas Carswell. Well, hello freedom fighters. Welcome to another show. Sorry about the lack of video yesterday, but we were busy celebrating our freedom and independence. The United Kingdom is once again a free country. We have officially stopped being a member of the European Union, and we have the next 11 months to basically get out of this transition period to make sure that we are completely free to do whatever we want. Sign trade deals and make our own laws, control our own borders and money. Now, firstly, I want to apologise for yesterday. We were supposed to be doing a live stream from Parliament Square. But I think because we had a massive crowd over there, there was a problem with signaling and data and my phone and everything. So unfortunately, that wasn't possible. But yesterday we had, before the actual countdown and the 11 o'clock deadline, we had Douglas Carswell on this channel, and we discussed a number of things, including the mainstream media's approach and the way they framed the whole debate of Brexit and how they are responsible for the division that we were experiencing in this country since 2016. So let's get on with it and watch the interview. Hello everyone, welcome to another show. Today on Brexit Day, I'm here with a special guest, Douglas Carswell, who is the co-founder of the Vote Leave campaign. He was a former member of Parliament and also a permanent long-term freedom fighter. Douglas, welcome to the show.
It's wonderful to be here, and what a great time to be alive. It's finally happening.
I can't believe it. It's weird.
Do you know, over the past 3 years, there were moments when I thought they were going to undo the referendum result.
Yeah.
When I saw Theresa May making such a mess of it, I can't believe it's actually going to happen. Isn't it wonderful?
It is, and I think because on Brexit night, when we got the vote and everything, I was obviously happy, but there were some people, friends, who were saying, don't be excited just yet, it's not the end. And I thought it was going to be easy.
It's extraordinary. After the referendum result, I went back to my constituency in Clacton in Essex, and I met a couple of people who said to me, the establishment, they are never going to allow it to happen. And I remember thinking, nonsense, we live in a democracy. And do you know what? I was naive. The establishment very nearly stopped it. The House of Lords, the judiciary, MPs in the old Parliament, and the media, they very nearly blocked Brexit. It's quite extraordinary. But we got there in the end. No, you're right. I mean, you mentioned media, and I think that all these, the academic Remainers, the establishment, the House of Lords, all these guys, they wouldn't have had the voice or the platform if the mainstream media hadn't given them so much airtime. We keep on being told by the media, we've been told over the past 3 years by the broadcast media that the country is somehow divided.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the media establishment has injected this idea of division. Mm-hmm. It's they who've whipped up this almost childlike tantrum amongst a certain type of person who just refused to accept the verdict of the voters.
I think that the media's role has been massive, and I think you're right, they never correct the errors. Let's just be devil's advocate. Sometimes maybe they made a mistake, sometimes it does come across as it's planned. For example, when with economic figures, and we know our view on economic forecasts, and trying to predict the future has never actually worked. And but when but they said after the vote, before the implementation of Brexit, we're going to lose jobs, we're going to have a recession, all this. No one's questioning what they were saying back then. Why they're not apologising for? Why they're not correcting?
It was extraordinary. In the run-up to the referendum, I would have liked to see public broadcasters and organisations that were given a public broadcasting licence to actually preside over a proper debate about some of the issues. Leavers like me would go into BBC studios wanting to talk about the consequences for trade with the EU if we voted to leave, and the consequences for trade with the rest of the world. I was never ever asked about that in the run-up to the referendum by the broadcasters. We only started to see those sorts of questions being asked after the referendum result. And then we spent the 3 years since the referendum result constantly being invited to debate things that we should have debated before the referendum.
Yeah.
So I think the public broadcasters got it wrong. They didn't ask the right questions before the referendum, and then after the referendum, they ask questions to try to delegitimise the result. It's quite extraordinary. I think actually we should be quite angry with the broadcasters.
Yeah.
They're not broadcasters, they're fraudcasters.
Well, they create the division, you're right. And I think that the whole country would have been in a whole different place if it weren't for these guys constantly. Since 2016, the vote has already happened, but they've been creating these debates, one-on-one debates, group debates. So I would have preferred if they had conducted some debates about the post-Britain world, rather than repeating the same argument.
Today, on the eve of Britain's departure from the EU, I was invited by ITV to go on their news show this evening to be on a panel with a Remainer. And I thought,
you know what's going to happen.
It's extraordinary. On the eve of Brexit, they are configuring their debates so that we have a rerun of conversations and arguments that we were having 4 years ago. It's quite extraordinary. They never allow a proper discussion about what lies ahead. They never allow a dispassionate conversation about what sort of country we could be. There's always this attempt to delegitimise the Remainers, to imply there's something immoral and suspect about the leaders. And I think one of the big consequences of the battles of the past 3 years is that the reputation of our broadcasters is now in the gutter. People can see they are not broadcasters, they are fraudcasters. They use their privileged position to perpetuate a narrative that confirms their own prejudices and preconceptions, and often their attempts to explain current affairs are works of fiction, pure fiction.
It is, and they try to make it entertaining by everything's had to be so snappy. You only have basically 20 seconds to explain a concept like Brexit, and then it's the other person's turn. We were talking about this with someone earlier about in America, the American outlets back in the 70s and 80s, they used to have these like an hour, 2 hour long shows with one person like Milton Friedman or Ayn Rand or someone from the other side. Actual discussion, let them go in depth, actually discuss it properly rather than so we have to go to commercial, you have 2 seconds, your time is up.
Well, Milton Friedman did that famous show, 10 1 hour long
Free to Choose or something.
Free to Choose. A really good investigation of a series of ideas, and boy, he was put on the spot.
Yes,
he got lots of people
grilled,
putting the counterpoint
and he enjoyed
point
it.
of view. But it allowed the viewer, it didn't patronise the viewer. When I was a Member of Parliament, I would quite often, in the run-up to the referendum, go into a BBC studio and I would be perfectly well prepared to talk about a series of issues that the producer had invited me on to talk about. But there was always the gotcha question, the gotcha line of questioning. And there's this constant attempt to sort of have a gotcha moment. And it means that actually when you're being interviewed, you're constantly on the defensive. You don't examine and explore the ideas that actually the viewer, I think, might want to know about. And I think the broadcasters in this country are their own worst enemy. They've reduced public broadcasting, which should inform and educate. They've reduced it to a sort of a gotcha moment. And I think the public's impoverished as a result. If Netflix did current affairs, I think people would be better informed.
No, absolutely. I think that's why there's a need for a media movement, the new alternative media.
You're doing, and please carry on doing it. Well, I think you're showing, quite seriously, I think you now have I think I'm referencing a bigger weekly audience than Sky Views.
It's just as almost basically at a quarter level.
And I think there will come a time when the establishment tries to co-opt you. They'll no doubt offer you a slot, but don't be tempted.
No.
I think what you're doing, because you're free from Ofcom rules, allows you to better discuss current affairs than any mainstream broadcaster could ever do.
Absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of people who can't say we get more from this content or content like this other channels do than watching a 2-minute segment on Sky News or BBC, because as we said, they just don't really talk about it. And then they have these things like Brexit cast on BBC, good guys by the way, good people, but it's because of Ofcom or because of the cultural, they're all a whole different class. It's like they're all a different species. They don't talk about things properly.
Ofcom was set up basically with a mid-20th century set of answers. They're trying to grapple with the problem. How do you ensure a plurality of opinion on a broadcast medium? A perfectly reasonable thing to want to address. But the solution that the broadcasters in this country have come up with is to ensure plurality by engineering a series of often completely unnecessary debates
Dramatic.
and division. I think what you need to do is actually allow much more in-depth, long-form discussion that is unapologetically subjective. So, for example, if the BBC really wanted, and if Ofcom really wanted to allow current affairs to be done properly by the BBC, they would allow someone like you, a classical free market liberal, an hour-long show with an hour-long discussion format without interruption. And then, separate to that, they would allow somebody like, I don't know, Grace Blakeley, a well-known Marxist, to have her slot. Instead of at the moment where you have this ridiculous attempt
Like
at
fight.
and it's often, people often say Andrew Neil is the best BBC interviewer, and I'm sure he is, but I think that may be the problem.
Because people like that dramatic style, and that's attractive, and I think that's the right's problem. That's why Lawrence Fox on Question Time, that went viral because it was fighty, and it shouldn't be the case.
I mean, you squeeze out the ability of people to have a deep, in-depth discussion about things that are of interest to the viewer. And the BBC takes it for granted that you need to dumb down. I think the viewer finds that condescending and patronising.
Well, absolutely. That's why they're moving away from them. Thanks for watching, and thanks for coming on the show.
Well done for what you do. Keep on doing it.
No, thank you very much. And if you haven't joined us yet, make sure you subscribe and click on the bell next to it so you get notified. We have a daily show at 5:45 p.m. on my Tousi with Douglas Carswell. I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new video.
Happy Brexit.